All right. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. The sun is shining so weird outside. It's like it is trying to shine through a lot of particles that almost look like, yes, nitrous oxide. Fertilization, you could say wildfires. Yeah, well, we know that after a fire, the soil becomes so rich with nutrients. And then when life comes back, it's even stronger because it went through that breakdown process and then rebuilding up. So after every fire, there's always amazing kind of growth when given time and opportunity and water and optimal conditions. Okay, so right now, yes, we're getting fertilized, but it's not a bad thing. Just drink water, eat food, release the demons, and realize that you are now reprogramming yourself from the old world into the new world. And now you have the freedom to program yourself. And so you have to recognize that you are and have been programmed biologically, psychologically, intellectually. It runs the gamut. Okay. And so, yeah, I was watching that video this morning of about Clockwork Orange. But before I get into that, last night we had some major storms, and usually I would be like getting my bug out bag ready for something to be so catastrophic. And I even saw on the Doppler that the intense storms were going to come through Canton, Ohio. And so I was just like, but I looked at the Doppler and I was looking at other weather channels and people that were keeping abreast of the weather, and they didn't say anything about tornado warnings or tornado watches in my area, but definitely for north of me in the Erie, Ashtabula County, or the Erie area, I guess. But, I fell asleep and slept through the major part of the storm. I did hear rumblings out there. I mean, it wasn't like I didn't hear the storms come through, and I heard the rain, but I fell asleep. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't scared. I wasn't getting all my items and putting them in the bag. I mean, I do have like my bag full of stuff that in case I had to get the keys and my wallet and my computer and I could put them all in one thing. But I wasn't concerned. Like I literally was not concerned. And so part of me has to have faith in the indicators around me that warn me of the different convection and different layers of pressure that would cause something catastrophic. And if they did say that Stark County would be under some kind of tornado warning, tornado watch, I would be down in the basement. But it was only a severe thunderstorm threat. But we know that sometimes those things turn into tornadic conditions. But I wasn't concerned. And that was a weird thing, the not being concerned. I actually fell asleep. And I woke up and the storm passed. Everything was okay. My husband came home and he's, sleeping. He thought he would stay up all day. No, he better not do that again. And so he's sleeping, thank gosh, because I was up at 5 this morning and I had coffee with him. And so I made him coffee, but he actually zonked out before he could drink the coffee. So I'm glad he's getting sleep. He can't have his brain be cannibalized. So anyway, so I was watching that Clockwork Orange stuff, and I did watch it, but I only watched part. Well, did I watch it all the way through? I might have. Probably a few years ago, but I didn't understand Clockwork Orange. I knew sort of about MK Ultra because they were showing the electrode therapy and then the forcing the eyes open to watch violent images, but I may not have paid attention really to all the nuances that are in it because it's so violent, and I don't like watching so much violence. But let me give you what I said about it. And so I said, watch this. So you see underneath this post about Clockwork Orange, this is why we're in a great reset, because the vast amounts of government experimentation on a population suffering from forced mind control. Because yes, not only violent images, but also sexual images and any other image they want people to act out as far as their programming that was done to either their grandparents and then their parents. And of course, every single time a generation reproduces, the programming either has become more pronounced or glitches. And then the person goes into an extreme side of that programming. And I'll tell you, given that I have a background in being programmed and knowing and being aware that I was programmed, and when you're aware of being programmed, then you remember things that would confirm and make the connections. Those are not aware of being programmed. They just think the world is like, I don't know. That's going to be a hard pill to swallow when you finally realize that you yourself have been biologically programmed, bioengineered, intellectually engineered, physically engineered. And yeah, so many different types of programming, behavioral modification, behavior programming, to the point of like, yeah, violence. Because I was watching Close Encounter of the Third Kind last night or yesterday with my husband. And I'm just like, it was weird because that was about the aliens and the aliens making connections with the humans, and certain people had the connection with the aliens. And Terry Garr in that show, or in that movie, she was a mother of like 3 kids, and her husband had a close encounter. And the government was also juxtaposition chasing these aliens and making contact. But that slight programming of when the kids were acting up and acting violent, she'd be like, you want me to hit you? You want me to hit you? And right there was a very slight nuance of the programming of using violence to modify behaviors. And so that was definitely acted out in the 80s, which is why you see Generation X and baby boomers always turning to corporal punishment as a way to modify their children's behavior and other people that don't agree with them. They always go to the violence right off the bat. And that was purposely done to the population. And then we're seeing how that programming has gone like completely rogue and extreme. And so that's why there's a lot of violence in the population. And so, okay, so this is why we're in a great reset. Vast amounts of government experimentation on a population suffering from forced mind control. And let me add one more thing about that movie, CETK, Close Encounters. I did watch it as a kid. I remember watching that movie and being just so awed about the Devil's Tower and about the whole alien connection stuff. The name of the lady that her son, in that movie, Barry, he was abducted. Well, her name is Jillian. I'm like, that's not coincidental. And of course, it was Indiana and Ohio were the 2 locations of that whole of that movie. And the Devil's Tower, then of course, the Wyoming, where they made the trek to Wyoming to go then to the Devil's Tower where the government was making contact. So it was just so weird in that movie that I watched when I was a kid in the 80s, 70s, whenever that came out. I didn't realize that I would end up in Ohio, and Ohio, Indiana, right there next to each other. And the lady's name is freaking Jillian. And it was just like, I don't know. It was just weird. It was just weird. I just see so many weird things on the movies. And it seems like a lot, even watching some of the Netflix shows like Rob and Me, which is a Rob or something with the comedian Rob, whatever his name is. They're always mentioning Ohio. In a lot of these movies, Ohio is mentioned for some reason. It's not like, okay, Texas or whatever, but somehow I always seem to catch the word Ohio as a reference point in the movie, in the plot line. And I'm just like, okay, this is just way too fucking weird, but I'm just going to leave it the way it is. But I wanted to make that observation. It's okay. So anyway, so my protocol broke me free from the programming, and I'm still actively releasing the biological programming. Not everybody will be able to break the programming, but at least you're aware of it if you choose to be. Okay, so Stanley Kubrick tries to tell you, and you watch all of his movies, he's telling you, with the Eyes Wide Shut and The Shining and any other Stanley Kubrick movie that's made in the 70s and 80s. I mean, they were telling us so much stuff. All right, and so politics, religion, and science dogmas, and everyone around you are all part of the nudge unit. Now, you can Google what the nudge unit is, okay? Being watched, which is what the analysis of that YouTube video about Clockwork Orange was, that whole surveillance society and watching people and inducing a programming that makes people have either love sex or hate sex, or no, you're not. Oh my God. Okay, these people don't want to join me in this video. No, all that stuff. There is a programming that causes people to have an aversion to something or causes them to love something and be completely just addicted to something. Okay, and that's all programming. And so anyways, okay, so being watched, all right, and also the self-destruction. When that in that movie and the analysis of it, when that subject that used to be violent then turned into an amiable slave that couldn't control his impulses because he was programmed to have an aversion towards something or be attracted to something or whatever, somebody used certain triggers like Beethoven's music to torture him. And so then he was tortured so much from that because of those triggers, and it caused him to go a little cuckoo. He then jumped out of a window and self-destructed. Okay, so that also is telling you something, that in the programming of our population right now, you have a self-destruct button. Okay, and that is the torture of the pain when all the cures wear off and you are breaking down to such an extent that nothing works anymore. And the pain is so great that not even the latest and greatest thing that's on the market works. Even jelly juice is not going to work over time, okay? Those that are addicted to jelly juice, then there is a self-destruct. And so at this point, the died suddenly, when you think about it, it's the government's kind way of not allowing you to suffer through that breakdown process. And so you have to look at the died suddenly is not a horrible thing. I mean, it is and it isn't. Because people are losing the people they love so much. But I guess, would you rather watch them suffer through their cancer, disease, and chronic illness that they're never, ever going to be able to face? And then they will going through, operation after operation, therapy after therapy after therapy, and they're being tortured through all the different stem cell transplants, all the different, transfusions, and every single thing that's out there in the medical holistic system. And so watching that, even watching your friends and family go through the operations after operations and stem cell transplant after stem cell transplants at the end of their line when they're in palliative care, that's fucking horrific. That's so torturous that it died suddenly is almost welcome, and it was meant to be welcome on some level. That's why then the whole euthanasia that is assisted but not active, but indirect euthanasia in Switzerland is legal. They give you the means. You're the one that will implement your own self-destruct. It can't be somebody doing it to you. You have to do it to yourself. That's why I made that correlation yesterday, that when your friends and family, the nudge units, are giving you the pills, the powders, the supplements, the detoxes, the surgeries, and all the different things to take away your pain, that's your friends and family giving you something so you can take away your pain, your life, and your intelligence in a systematic, progressive manner. And then, of course, the resistance. People who resist evolution, resist assimilation, resist adaptation will definitely turn to those means and then gather the people around them to support them in that self-destruct process. And that's all the activists out there. So watch all the activists out there. They're going off their rock. They are freaking the fuck out. And this is going to happen because you're not willing to understand that you have to feed your body. You have to stop being afraid of things. You have to understand what's going on. You've got to be able to feed yourself, assimilate, release the demons, take a step back, change the way you look at things. But you can't force people to do that. And so there was a programming called Old Age. There was a programming called Old Age attached to deterioration, attached to the methods in the medical holistic system that assisted people in the deterioration process, but also help them stop suffering, but not really, because at some point you can't stop suffering unless you're willing to go through it died suddenly. Hold on. Okay, I had to plug my computer in because I unplugged it last night thinking that there might be a power surge. Didn't want my computer to blow up. But anyway, so there is a programming called old age, and it's deterioration. It's senescence deterioration, and that again is coupled with the mitigation of food, the fear of GMO, the fear of gluten. Well, of course, because you have food allergies because you use food as medicine, body develop defense against it, you have an allergy, and then it's painful. Food becomes painful. And then people are slowly and then accelerating the starvation process to not only their children, but also themselves. And it's an insidious thing that is it's gradual, that happened over the last 20 years and has accelerated even before that because people had issues with having extra weight to them. They were told to look sexy, you had to weigh next to nothing. And then you had those images from Hollywood and the fashion industry showing these emaciated girls that look like skeletal systems, and or you had someone really obese, and because they couldn't help the programming of the body producing so much and they couldn't release. And so then that was, of course, used as a tool to scare people into then taking food away, or taking operations to control that. And so, yeah, everyone is used as a tool, as a nudge programming to keep people in specific lines in a very specific mind control type of acting out whatever was programmed, developed into you in your genetic line from even your grandparents, great-grandparents, and then your offspring keep exhibiting those characteristics. And so then I wanted you to understand what the senescence is. And then with the whole J world, my whole body has changed. I'm seriously going like, wow, I've never had boobs like I've had my boobs right now. I've never had, because I weighed next to nothing. And so when I weighed next to nothing, that was a programming because it was a type of starvation. And so I had a very specific body type. But then when I was eating a bunch of food and the body was breaking free from that programming, it would add on the weight, add on extra weight. And so I did look pretty chubby in a not very healthy way back in probably in 2016, 2015, 2016. And there's pictures of my old account that showed me going out to dinner with my husband. And we both looked like we were like porkers. And so then when I did the J juice and I released so many demons, that was just the beginning, and you saw pictures of me. And then I added the healthy weight, or I won't say healthy, but the balanced weight on me to then deal with the energy conversion. Okay, so there is definitely a smart gene, which is comprised of both nature and nurture. And so I realized that not only did I have to change the programming in my body to release those demons, this is what I've realized over time, then I had to feed my mind the proper information to understand why my body's going through these changes when I release those demons. And so that was the nurture, and then the nature had to take its course. It had to go through the different processes that were mischaracterized or developed a meaning around outcomes like phenotypical characteristics and energy that's being released. And so remember, in landmark education, and bring that in again because that landmark was pretty integral as far as the foundation. But yeah, humans or non-humans, the system develops meanings, like the if-then programming. When you have pain, it means this. When you're gaining weight, it means this. When your hair turns gray, it means this. So that's why the old age or aging attached to the hair going gray is then people resist the aging process, right? Because that was the meaning. But no, it's the programming wearing off. Maybe we're all supposed to have white hair, gray hair, silver hair based upon our geographical location. And so the fact that we're told that the gray hair is a bad thing, it means you're going to die someday, or you've accelerated the aging process. Well, it's not so much age that you're going to die. It's just that programming of your black hair, brown hair, red hair, all was a phenotypical characteristic bioengineered gene that was programmed into you to last a certain amount of time. But then they tell you that in certain races, certain ethnicities, that programming actually wears off sooner than other ethnicities. And so if you don't understand really what the programming is, then you'll think then it's an accelerated genetic component that has caused you to lose certain things and then potentially die sooner or have other issues. So let me read this. And so the belief in the spell that you have no control over deterioration process or the aging process. Okay, it is possible. It is possible to reverse the aging process, and you don't have to die someday, and you won't require medical intervention unless you're in an accident out of your control. Okay, and so the whole J world is breaking the spell. We've broken the spell, but it was a matter of how do you explain what the spells are that were cast upon you biologically, genetically, and even nurture, all the intellectual programming. Okay, so the descriptions below are based upon a body who has been programmed to self-destruct, to break down. So that's why they're CRISPR gene editing these kids who are so fucking smart at like 15, 16, 14 years old, right? Because they've accelerated the smart gene. They've taken the type A's and B's who are smart in the population who are adults and then accelerated the environment and accelerated that gene to activate in young kids who are then like little computers at like 5 or 6 years old. And that was the whole Fraser Crane predictive programming with the psychiatry and the psychology and then nature and nurture. And that's where you had the Fraser Crane and Cheers and all that. And so they're telling you that, yeah, science is doing a lot of things to pull out resources from people. Okay. And so the 11 major organ systems of our body are the integumentary system, the hair, skin, and nails, the skeletal, muscular, nervous, endocrine, cardiovascular, lymphatic, respiratory, digestive, urinary, and reproductive system. And you can keep those intact. They don't have to deteriorate. But again, your practice in the medical holistic system and food mitigation and diets and all that stuff are actively deteriorating your 11 different systems. Okay? And so when I came from the perspective of what happens when I'm Googling and I'm asking Google, what happens when two breasts, when they deteriorate? What do they say? The falling estrogen levels at the menopause makes breast tissue dehydrated and less elastic. So breasts can lose their rounded shape and begin to sag. Well, it's completely the opposite for me because I've been drinking milk, eating all foods, releasing demons, and not worried about the weight that I'm gaining during this climate change, during this bloom of the heat and whatever else. And I'm allowing my body to work the way it's supposed to. And so my boobs are not falling down. They're not like losing elasticity. Actually, they're really, it's a trip. I mean, I'm not trying to be that descriptive and that, but it's different. Like it's different. It's totally different. Okay. And so the endocrine system, like all other body parts, the endocrine system undergoes age-related changes that negatively affects its functioning. As a result of these changes, older people are more prone to disturbed sleep patterns, have a reduced metabolic rate, lose bone density, accumulate body fat, and show increases in blood glucose. Well, just because I accumulate body fat doesn't mean that my endocrine system is breaking down. See, correlation does not mean causation, and it doesn't mean what you think it means. But people will make those types of diagnoses because that's how they've been taught to make a mean that when someone gains weight, they have issues. Not necessarily, maybe it's also giving them a layer of immunity, right? A layer of immunity, and then also giving them some substance for energy conversion, as well as protecting them from major electrical surges, okay? And so if you are in the J world and you finally release those demons and you go through the processes and you pull back on your lifestyle, then you will see that you'll get really good sleep. You're going to find that everything that happens when your endocrine system is breaking down is going to be reversed. But you can't assume because you're gaining weight or energy happens that it's bad. And that's what the spell was put on people is anytime energy happens from their body, they're always taking an herb, extract, supplement, detox, a surgery, and somebody is diagnosing them and telling them to go to the hospital and go get something done to them. Okay, so then I go like, hey, Google, what happens when your cardiovascular breaks down during the aging process? Well, they said the most common aging change is increased stiffness of the large arteries. So there you go, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, called an arteriosclerosis or hardening of the arteries. This causes high blood pressure or hypertension, which becomes more common as we age. So then you see what the system is doing, is blaming the J juice on people's high blood pressure and hypertension, when in actuality, it's the fact that there's less fat in their intake. They're not releasing the demons, and there's more muscle because of the food that they're eating is mostly protein, hardly any fat. They have still the programming that is not allowing them to metabolize and take in the necessary ingredients. And so, yeah, you're going to see then heart disease in people, like major heart disease. And it's happening. You see in some cultures are more prone to hypertension. All right, well, that was for a reason. All right, so then I asked my search engine brain, what happens to your integumentary system when you age? And then they're like, oh, your skin is thinner, more fragile. So look at my skin, guys. And you lose some of the protective fat layer. That's your immunity. That's your immune system, is the fat. You also may be less able to sense touch, pressure, vibration, heat and cold. Rubbing or pulling on the skin can cause skin tears. You see people who are elderly in this day and age, right? And their skin is thinner. It's almost translucent, like almost vampire. You can see all the veins. They don't feel heat or cold too much or whatever. Pressure, vibration, like I feel all vibrations. I sense the change in the freaking force, right? I can hear frequency changes. But people who are compromised can't. They're in their own little cured world of completely disconnected with the environment. That's why they self-destruct, because they can't even sense indicators. And so, yeah. So when you're in the J world and you bring back all the meat, milk, cheese, eggs, fruits, vegetables, everything that you've been told that was all poison from your friends, and you stay away or finally wean yourself off the medical, holistic system, energy, healing world, then your skin comes back. See, look at my skin. Do you see if there's no thinness? I'm almost 50. I'm not losing massive amounts of weight. I'm getting I got my face back. You saw what I looked like a couple years ago in the Facebook reel of me. I looked really skinny, like too skinny. I couldn't get away with that in this environment. All right. So when you finally bring back the fat and the food and you release the demons and you stay away from the medical holistic system, your skin won't become thinner or fragile. And you'll gain the fat layers, your immunity. That's your protective layer for so many things. And you'll be very sensitive to touch, pressure, vibration, and heat and cold. And then when you rub or pull on your skin, it won't fucking tear or break. Food is the fucking answer. The medical holistic system, they're casting fucking spells on you. But you would never know that because remember, you've been programmed to behave and believe in a certain way. Politics, religion, and science have cast spells on people. And you see that in, just look at all your friends who are in the religions. They're doing so much J juice, they don't want to feel stuff. They're doing their garden, saying, oh, look at my organic garden. It's so organic, it's so healthy because it has no GMO, and they're getting fertilized by the fucking skies that are fertilizing not only them, but their fucking garden. But can you tell them that? No, because they're under a fucking spell in their religion. Like radicalized in their religion, in their science dogmas, and also in their politics. Oh, it's a phenomenon to watch the religious community beat the drum of I'm doing something different. I'm having look at my organic garden. I'm so healthy as they're aging out, deteriorating. That's the phenomenon you have to watch. That's why you need to have a diverse community, because you can watch this in action. It's fucking crazy and it's amazing. I'm trying to get through to my religious community, but I'm telling you, they're so resistant because of that programming. I don't want to downgrade anyone. I'm not trying to make people feel bad, but I'm trying to give people another way out of this self-destruct. Even though it's painful, it's not like something you can't handle. People have been in pain their whole fucking life, so make it work for you then. And eventually it won't be as painful as it is today. And so I asked my search engine, what happens to your lymphatic system when you start aging out? And they go, studies have shown that the number of nodes, okay, your lymph nodes, like your under armpits and other places, you can Google where those are, decrease with age. And aging-associated degenerative features emerge in the lymph nodes, such as fibrosis. Researchers have found that the muscle walls of the lymphatic vessels become thinner, and the number of muscle cells decrease. Therefore, the contraction strength and the rate is affected, and the valves are less able to close properly. This can cause slowing of fluid transport and a backflow and congestion of fluid in the lymphatic system, which then contributes to all the lymphatic diseases, the lymphomas, all the different cancers, people getting bulging, white blood cells under their armpits. They're getting their nodes removed. They're getting surgery on their lymph nodes because the body's producing so many white antibodies to protect it, and there is no way for it to release. Like my under armpits, when it's highly aggressive, I can feel the pain of release. And so I can feel the contraction. I feel it in my legs too sometimes when there is a real aggressive instability causing the growth and release and the moving of those antibodies throughout the system to then be released through the skin, through the armpits, through every opening, through my poop, pee, all that stuff. But people actively, surgically take out their defense system. And they wonder why they're a mess. Because they were under the spell to get everything surgically taken out, or food mitigation, or using something aggressive against the body's release process. And so that's pretty crazy, but not really, because again, that's a spell. So I said, okay, GOOGLE, what happens to the respiratory system when you're aging out? Respiratory muscle strength decreases with age and can impair effective cough, which is important for airway clearance. Okay, that's why I keep telling you guys, cough, sneeze, blow your nose, build up the conditioning. Don't do breathing exercises and then when it's time to cough and sneeze, you don't do that, because that's bullshit. That's totally counterproductive. That's why I don't play those fucking meditation yoga bullshit games. When your body needs to release, you have to cough it out. You have to sneeze it out. You have to blow your fucking nose. You have to really condition and exercise, not like literally exercise, but you have to really use those muscles of release to where when you're coughing and you can feel yourself fart. And John was saying, well, I cough or I blowed my nose one time really hard or sneezed one time and I shit myself. Good. Obviously, it needed to leave the body. It's not always happen that way, but when the body has to release something like aggressively and you have finally tapped in to your body's defense systems and you cough and sneeze and blow your nose and you happen to shit at the same time, it needed to happen. Believe me, I don't always blow my nose and shit comes out. I fart, but I have enough muscle control on either end to know when it's appropriate to take a shit. But when the environment is so aggressive and the body has to release like an emergency, and I happen to cough, sneeze, and blow my nose, yeah, sometimes that happens. But it doesn't happen all the time because the environment isn't always that aggressive all the time. And so just because it happens once doesn't mean it's always going to happen. So understand your body eventually will train itself to be able to control itself, but still be able to defend itself without causing embarrassing moments. But again, during that transition, everyone's going to go through some point of embarrassment, like I have. Okay. And so when you have people sucking out your mucus, when you're using mucus drying agents and NyQuil and Mucinex and Imodium and like pineapple juice as a cough suppressant, then you are atrophying your body's ability to release. And this is why people are deteriorating rapidly and they can't handle a climate change. And that's also why a diet suddenly happens. And so then I asked my search engine, what happens to your digestive process when you start aging out and deteriorating in the system? Well, it says small intestines have been shown to increase as we age, leading to bloating, pain, and decreased absorption of nutrients such as calcium, folic acid, and iron. Changes to the stomach lining causes it to lose elasticity, which can decrease its ability to resist damage, increasing the risk of ulcers as well as not being able to accommodate as much food. So you're seeing osteoporosis. You're seeing people that stay away from food because it causes bloating and they don't like the feeling alive. I mean, all the different digestive diseases that's diagnosable out there. People get Crohn's, they get all these different issues. And so then there is that food mitigation, the starvation. And then you see people deteriorate from the starvation. They don't survive starvation. And so in the J world, when you finally bring back the milk, the meat, the cheese, the eggs, everything that you told to stay away from because you don't want to feel bloated, that's why you have to understand opening up your system down there so you can release the demons. And that is a conditioning process. That's why women with long nails, you ain't gonna fucking survive. There's no fucking way. Because you have to know your system backwards and forwards and everything. Okay. And so when that bloating happens, or when things, not all the time you can get everything out. Sometimes you have to sit with it. Eventually the body will release. But during that time when I was going through that energy conversion, because of the fires and the increase in the particle acceleration, and remember how bloated I looked a couple days ago or a couple weeks ago? Like I showed a picture of what I looked like when I bloated, and then when I released those demons and I kept pooping and pooping, I didn't always get it out, the day that I wanted to get it out, but it got out eventually. Then everything came back to normal again. I wasn't bloated. I didn't look puffy. I didn't look unstable, but I wasn't like feeling anything out of the ordinary. I was up at 4 a.m. most of the time during that process, and I was still cognitively aware and putting out information and still relatively, functional and productive. But yes, naps were called for and all that stuff, but that's what you do. You listen to your body when you need to do stuff. So bloating isn't bad. It just happens. Sometimes I feel bloated and I'm just like, okay, sometimes I don't want to even eat the food. I can't finish my food. Sometimes I have to eat as much food as what I feel like it's in my system so I can have that leverage, that energy, and that leverage and that volume of food that I brought in to release whatever that's being stuck in the system, that's stuck somewhere in the passageways. And so you really got to strategize surviving in this environment. You have to know your body backwards and forwards. And if you don't, forget it. Forget it. If you have no interest in how your body works, forget it. You're not going to survive this. You'll live out your life with somebody else commandeering every single system. And so again, I asked my search engine, what happens to the urinary tract system or the urinary system during the aging process? And so it said, aging increases the risk of kidney and bladder problems such as bladder control issues such as leakage or urinary incontinence, not being able to hold your urine, or urinary retention, not being able to completely empty your bladder and other urinary tract infections. So you get infection, okay? Because you hold things that are enemies against you, and then your body has to develop a defense system against things that you're holding inside. So that's why there's a lot of UTIs out there. Because people are not releasing, they're not flushing, and I'm not saying go do the detoxes, but, drinking, right now, my body flushes itself out. I don't have to go and prompt it by taking something intentional to flush my system. My body does it on its own. I drink water, I drink my coffee and my cream, my milk, whatever, and I don't have any more UTIs. When I go to the bathroom after sex, I make sure there's nothing that will be stuck up there or anything like that. And so there's even things that I know I need to do to take care of flushing out things after certain activities. Okay, and that's for all women out there who are in relationships. Make sure you go to the restroom after sex. That is probably a very basic concept that people aren't always told until they learn the hard way by having that many UTIs in their life, okay? But I learned, So that's important to know. All right, but when you finally release those demons, and you'll go through, like I went through even after being on the J juice for a minute back in 2016, 2017. Oh yeah, I had a few UTIs during that process, but I didn't take anything for it. I may have done in the beginning when we were all doing the different garlic oils and stuff. I may have used something like that down there during that process, but then eventually I had to revisit that again until I was able to deal with it without using any antibiotics, even natural. And so then I just put like a little bit of J juice in my belly button, and I just sat with the weird feeling of pain. Okay, and that was enough. And then finally I was able to deal with it without using jelly juice in the belly button. And then everything started coming out. And so it's a gradual process. It's not fun to go through the process of releasing the demons in all the different orifices of your body. That can be kind of torturous, okay? So just understand that. So what happens to the reproductive system when it goes through a senescence or deterioration? So in the middle and old age, the reproductive system undergoes significant changes, a gradual decline in fertility, and fluctuation in the production of sex hormones, the latter triggering an anatomical and physiological changes in distant organs and tissues. And so I know I said, I mean, right now I'm not, so I mean, when I first met my husband, yeah, everything was like, yeah, we were both on the same page as far as that goes, right? Then my body was changing. I mean, it still did stuff, but I wasn't like super enamored and doing everything all the time. So that kind of scaled down. But then when I did the J world, then the urges scaled down even more so because the body was on its way to becoming whole again. And so releasing those demons. And so now, I mean, I don't have to do it, but I can do it. And so everything works. Like everything works. Like everything works. I don't always want to do it all the time, but everything works. And there is no issue with anything. And so, but I'm not dropping an egg. But I can commandeer my hormones when I need to and do what I got to do to make sure I have one step in the world of my husband and then one step in the world of the future. And so it's like I am straddling both the past and the future, and it's a trip. But no, I haven't dropped an egg since February, since my dog passed away. When I had that infection that sat in the back of my spine, right at the top of my spine and my neck. You can call it fungal meningitis, spinal meningitis. But that people die from that. But no, my body was able to release that over time, and I had to pull out the crap. And so it didn't work against me. All right. So anyways, so just understand that yes, when you become a whole person, you're not going to be fertile. You'll be able to do mitosis versus meiosis. Mitosis is lengthening your telomeres and replicating cells that are necessary so you don't go into senescence. And then you're not going to be dropping as many eggs or as many semen seeds. Because what happens when guys drop so many semen, that's pixelations of themselves. That's basically pieces of themselves they are releasing. Okay, and then sometimes it can fertilize an egg and develop a baby. It carries on that genetic line. But that's what happens when guys ejaculate so much all the time, they actually deplete. And so that's why all the images of these girls that look hot, that's why the porn industry was so prolific. And it still is. The images, now you have artificial intelligence to get guys to lose their life force. You don't even need girls anymore. You don't have to use women anymore to do that, which is saving the women from becoming objects to these guys. When you have artificial intelligence to release those demons, so to speak, that saves the women from becoming an ornament to these men that cannot help their hormonal programming. So I don't even think it's bad. Because in this accelerated environment, people are hornier even now and to the point of predatory. And if you're not a strong woman, you'll be depleted. Because men's urges are like on steroids in this environment. And they will have woman after woman. They don't want to get married because what's the point now? You can get it for free, or you can get images given to you, or you can just go get a bunch of women and promise them the world and use them until they realize that they're not going to get the fairy tale dream of Prince fucking Charming. That's not going to happen anymore. Men are getting even smarter nowadays. They don't want to take on a head case. And a lot of women have head case. They have a lot of issues, and not their fault. They were programmed to be that way, and the programming is breaking down. And so that's why the artificial intelligence and the live dolls and all these things are happening. Okay? So if you want that traditional marriage, you better find someone relatively stable, and you better have something to offer them. You better bring something major to the table, and not just your body, not just sex, and not just, oh, look, I'm pretty. And believe me, not many men want to have children. Okay? They don't want to take on an instant family. So just understand that the world's changed. People are slow to change. So I asked the Google, what happens to your skin when it goes through a senescence or the aging process? Oh, I already said that. Okay. Your skin changes with the age, it becomes thinner, loses fat, and no longer looks as plump and smooth as it once did. Your veins and bones can be seen more easily. Scratches, cuts, and bumps can take longer to heal. Aging skin looks thinner, paler, and clear, translucent like Dracula. Pigmented spots, including age spots or liver spots, may appear in sun-exposed areas. The medical term for these areas is lentigos. Changes in the connective tissue reduce the skin strength and elasticity. and I have a lot of skin, a lot of elasticity. Yeah, I have moles in my body, but I don't have translucence. If I go in the sun, I'll get tan. I'll probably burn a little bit and get tan, but I have enough substance to me to go through the being exposed to sun and having the melanin, which eventually, like I said, with my hair, it's going to go through. It's eventually, if I'm not in the sun a lot, you see the white. Before I thought that the white was, I was aging. No, it means that was the original programming. The white in the hair is the original programming. Okay? And the people are trying to fight the looks of aging, so they're dyeing their hair all the time, or somebody's recommending them so many antioxidants to get their hair color back. And of course, there's all these therapies to make your hair, become, or either grow or stay the color. I don't know. There might be therapies that keep your hair color. But people have been coloring their hair for years when they have premature gray. But it's not really premature. That was the original programming. But the hair programming was breaking down. Okay? And so I will probably have silver hair. But see, look. This is the original programming. Before I used to kind of pull out the white hairs. I wanted to keep my black. But no. Now, this is not the aging process. This is the original programming. All right? The original programming. And so I will embrace it for whatever it is. I will embrace it. I don't care what it looks like as long as I'm surviving. I could give a fuck of looking sexual. I can give a fuck of looking like the programmed person out there. I want to survive. I'm not trying to put off an image. All right. And so what happens to the muscles when it goes through an aging process? Muscle fibers reduce in number and shrink in size. Muscle tissue is replaced more slowly, and lost muscle tissue is replaced with a tough, fibrous tissue. Changes in the nervous system causes the muscles to have reduced tone and ability to contract. So when I'm going through an energy conversion and I get muscle contractions, that's the body releasing stuff, right? All the lactic acid that builds up during that energy conversion because the climate's changed, and then it's releasing, and it's painful, right? And so, but I have muscles. Like, look at this. It's not like I'm trying to lift weights, but I have natural muscle tone, and I don't lift weights. But I'm not trying to. I have muscles in my legs, and when I go up and down the steps, running up and down the steps, I had a sprained ankle many years back, and then I re-sprained it back in 2010, and then they did the x-rays and said, oh yeah, the sprain that you had back when you were a kid didn't heal properly because I used tape to keep it in line. And of course now I was allergic to adhesive tape back then, so I had all these bumps. Now I don't put adhesive on my body, so I would never know if I'm allergic or not to it. But I felt pains, a little bit of what I felt was weakness in my ankles, but not anymore. I can run up down the stairs and I can jump off of like my husband's boat and not fear that I'm going to break an ankle or break a bone. But nowadays, when people are going through that deterioration process, they jump off of something, or they turn the wrong way and they break bones. And that's when people realize that they're deteriorating, is when their bones start breaking. And then they're prescribed calcium, prescribed all these different things to try to strengthen the bones. But no, it's not going to work. You have to release the demons, and you have to bring in the milk and the fat and release more demons, bring in the fat, the food, everything. And when these kids are breaking bones, okay, when these kids are breaking bones, then you know they're deteriorating, and also they're not going to grow in a way that's going to help them survive. They're growing in a very malnourished state, and the bone breakage is the first fucking sign. And when women who are like my age or older or younger, when they're breaking bones, that's a fucking indicator. That's a major indicator. Okay, let me blow my nose. Okay, so we mentioned hair. So hair, what happens to hair when it's going through the aging process? Well, you already lost the programming anyways, but nearly everyone has some hair loss with aging. The rate of hair growth also slows. Hair strands become smaller and have less pigment. So the thick, coarse hair of young adults eventually become thin, fine, light-colored. So I noticed the difference between the new hair that's coming in that was from my original programming, and then this programming is going to wear off. What kind of hair am I going to have? And it'll be white, but will it be thick? I don't know. We'll see. Because remember, there's all these cross crossbreeding genetics, because there's a gene for thick hair, there's a gene for thin hair. I mean, it's all relative to your environment and all that stuff. But I see even the white strands are thick. Okay, so you see them, but they look wiry. Like you see, it's a little bit different consistency than the, okay? And it strips some, it's even a little bit curly that comes out. It's weird. That's what prompted me yesterday to talk about that as far as the programming of the hair, because I'm noticing that the white hair is becoming even more so. And I'm like, oh shit, that's the original programming. Okay, original programming. Black hair, red hair is all bioengineered. All right, so that's why youth is so revered, because that's programming. And then they made the release of the programming of all that programmed phenotypical characteristics tied to then the degradation process. And that's why people accept aging. And why you see everyone universally trying to fight the aging process by coloring their hair or doing, you know, the surgeries, the Botox, the plastic surgery Botox, and all the different creams and all that stuff. It's a huge business, programming people to be a certain way, and when the programming starts wearing off, then trying to get that programming back through other ways. Oh, it's a huge business. It's a multi-trillion-dollar business of 12.9 billion people in the future going through that. Okay, so what happens to fat when you are going through senescence? Excuse me. The amount of body fat goes up steadily after the age 30. Okay, so you're all skinny and malnourished and programmed. And so the amount of fat goes up steadily after age 30. Older people may have almost 1/3 more fat compared to when they were younger. Fat tissue builds up towards the center of the body, including around the internal organs. However, the layer of the fat under the skin gets smaller. So that's your immune system depleting. See, you see what happens. People get more fat around maybe the middle, and so you see why the kind of the Humpty Dumpty look when people get older. The Ursula look and all that from the Disney. And so, yes, all this fat tissue is becoming more condensed around the organs, which is why then people have made correlation equals causation, that fat around the organs equals, heart attack or stroke. Not necessarily, but yes, the way it has been distributed and programmed, where you don't have an immune system over here, but you have all this protection over here. Too much protection on your heart will cause then the hypertension and constricted blood vessels. And so you have to distribute the fat and distribute the adipose tissue properly, but that requires you breaking the programming, okay? And so, yeah, I've gained weight, but I've gained it in a way that's distributed properly throughout my whole body and my boobs and my heart and my liver and around my kidneys and my vital organs, and also in my thighs and all over, and my face sometimes when it has to go through the energy conversion. But this is where you can see the indicators of relatively good health when you think about it, or balance, because I don't get zits anymore. I don't go through the PMS like I did. I don't even have my period now. Like, again, the last time I dropped an egg was in February. All right? And we're in right now June. Holy shit. And I'm not losing collagen. I don't have elastic skin. I'm not aging out. And yeah, you can call it menopause, but what does that mean? What does that mean to people? Oh, she's going to lose her life at some point. She's degrading because she's menopause. No, when you're so fertile reproductively, that's the aging process. That's the senescence. That's the degradation. You have the meanings around fertility and infertility completely backwards based upon the system's intention. And so women who are young, they're fertile, yes, because they're young enough to have a kid. That's why a lot of these girls have kids at around 20. People don't like that, kids having kids, but then these kids are used as experiments for the system. And so when older people have kids, like someone who's like in their 40s have kids, then the kids are in deficit. Okay, because the mother doesn't have as much intelligence like she did when she was in her 20s, and I'm not saying intellectual intelligence, but the fat, the substance. But they have their career. All right, so understand that fat, the way fat is used has been also weaponized against people, and the way the system developed meanings around fat and a programming around fat has also worked against people. Again, look at all your friends and family that are going through that process. All right? And then look at me. Yeah, I'm bigger and my clothes don't fit like they used to, but it's distributed in a balanced way. But it's a weird feeling to have bigger boobs. It's a weird feeling to have a little bit of more of a belly and thighs. And I'm accepting it. I'm going with it. And so what happens to bones when people become more decrepit and deteriorate? Bones become more brittle and may break more easily. Overall height decreases, mainly because the trunk and spine shorten. Breakdown of the joints may lead to the inflammation, pain, stiffness, and deformity. Joint changes affects almost all older people or who are deteriorating. And so nothing like that is happening to me. I haven't weighed myself lately. I haven't measured how high, or how tall I am. But I don't have any pain. I don't have any stiffness. I don't have any deformity. I don't have any joint issues. And the climate's changed a lot since the last time I was sick. So I think I'm doing okay. So what happens to the heart when the body ages aggressively? The chambers of your heart may increase in size. The hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. The heart wall thickness, so the amount of blood that a chamber can hold, may decrease despite the increased overall heart size. The heart may fill more slowly. And so, then you have the low blood pressure and then increase to high blood pressure to force to get that blood through the different parts. I mean, that's the thing when people are are deteriorating because of their medical holistic practices and the food mitigation and the using of all the different antibiotics against their body's defense systems. That's why you're seeing the diet suddenlies. Okay? What happens to the lungs when you get older? There are several body changes that happen as you get older that may cause a decline in lung capacity. Alveoli can lose their I don't know how you pronounce it, but I'll say it like that, can lose their shape and become baggy. The diaphragm can over time become weaker, which I'm telling you, blow your nose and cough from your diaphragm to strengthen your diaphragm so you can release those demons so you don't fucking drown in your own mucus. Okay, that is so fucking important. And so the diaphragm can over time become weaker, decreasing the ability to inhale and exhale. The change will only be significant when exercising. So when people are going through that exercise regimes on a constant basis, working out, lifting weights, going through their marathons, as they are deteriorating, then they will notice that decrease in capacity and ability to take in air and release it. And then of course, when your body's getting filled with so much cell replication because your immune system is triggered because of a new foreign entity in the environment and you can't release that mucus. And of course, you don't have enough fat on your body. And of course, you're not eating like you should. People die suddenly. That's the issue in this environment when you are an athlete, is diet suddenlies will happen. So what happens to your face when you get older? Loss of muscle tone and thinning skin gives the face a flabby or drooping appearance, which is why girls and women get plastic surgery and Botox. In some people, sagging jowls may create the look of a double chin. Do I have sagging jowls? No. Sometimes when my body goes through an energy conversion and I have more weight to me, I'll have like a extra skin, or not extra skin, but extra fat. But then it gets released when I take shits, okay, that were still in my system that couldn't get out for whatever reason. All right. So some people, sagging jowls may create the look of a double chin. Your skin also dries out, and I don't have any dry skin. And the underlying layer of fat shrinks so your face no longer has a plump, smooth surface. To some extent, wrinkles cannot be avoided. And so you're seeing that in the women out there that are fighting the aging process, the deterioration process, but through artificial means like Botox. What happens when you're taking all the Botox and plastic surgery and the body goes into that cured state, right, for a minute? And so they look relatively young for a certain amount of time until the body then redoubles its efforts and then develops so much of that fluid of the defenses, the white blood cells, And then people look swollen as they deteriorate even more. Their immune system has triggered and nothing can stop it. And that's why women later on down the road, after all that plastic surgery and Botox, they look swole up. They look crazy. They look like they've had so much plastic surgery, and then finally the spell wore off. And that's, so you look at Hollywood and look at your friends who've done so much plastic surgery and Botox and all the things to stop their body from working the way it's supposed to. It will work against them. The spell will be broken and everything will be as it was before. You can't shortcut Mother Nature. She will take her due. What happens to the brain when the body deteriorates? Neurotransmitter systems. Researchers suggest that the brain generates fewer chemical messengers with deterioration or age, and it is the decrease in dopamine and then acetylcholine and other stuff. And so then this is where Alzheimer's, this is where dementia, this is where neurological conditions happen, and people obviously are in pain or going through something and they're taking their alcohol and their drugs, and it's also causing other issues. And so as the body deteriorates and you don't feel it and you're under the influence 24/7, then these diagnosable conditions will start triggering and popping up. And then at some point, that person will not have the ability to redirect because they won't have the memory or the wherewithal or the support system to redirect. The train has left the station. And that is really scary. Don't let in the J world, do not, if you're even observing the J world, do not let the brain deterioration get too far gone. Because when you start forgetting major things, yeah, there's no way. Then it's just making you comfortable during that process. And then you see people put on their Facebook, when someone goes through dementia or Alzheimer's, and they're remembering things from long ago or thinking or forgetting things or in another freaking world, that you just have to go with it. You can't tell them, well, no, this person died, or no, this person doesn't exist anymore, this person isn't around anymore. And I'm watching on Manifest on Netflix, which has its own message, and I'm like, oh, Jesus. And they're dealing with someone with dementia or Alzheimer's, and they just have to go with it. They have to pretend that the people in that person's world still exist when they don't. All right. So what happens to feet? All right, when you're going through a deterioration. Some of the most common foot problems in older adults include bunions, corns, calluses. I used to have all that stuff. Hammer toes, ingrown, thickened, or discolored nails, diabetic foot conditions, poor circulation, and heel pain. And so regular visits to the podiatrist can help you maintain your foot health as you age, I'm sure. I used to have bunions. I have a few calluses still, but they're not that bad. But I used to have bunions, corns. Oh, God. That's all disappeared in the J world. All that extra skin on my feet disappeared. Okay? And then what happens to your nervous system as you age? Your brain and nervous system go through a natural change. Your brain and spinal cord lose nerve cells and weight, so they atrophy. Nerve cells may begin to pass messages more slowly than in the past. Waste products or other chemicals such as beta amyloid can collect in the brain tissue as nerve cells break down. Okay, so the aging process is deterioration. When people are practicing everything that I said in the medical holistic system, the spells of deterioration, that you're supposed to die someday, and youth is to be worshipped, and food, people are like, food is poison, pain is bad, and drugs are great, and herbs are amazing, and they've spiritualized the deterioration process and turned it into a religion. And you see it all over all the different spiritual, religion, scientific, political belief systems. And so really the aging process is deterioration because of your practices. And of course, people are under the influence of cannabis. Yeah. And then they've done all the ayahuasca psychedelic stuff, so they get their messages sent to them that way as their body deteriorates. And so it's deterioration, it's senescence, and it's decay. Aging is all the same thing. And you can read those definitions. And yeah. And so, okay, so that's it. So what I want you to focus on that. So that way, when you're in the J world and you're bringing food back, you're dealing with the pain, you're going through that process, you're coughing, you're sneezing, you're blowing your nose, you're pulling out the shit, you're taking on the weight, or your body is naturally releasing. I don't say naturally, it's your body is releasing programming, okay, in its systematic manner. And it's a slow process. Just like my hair turning white will be a slow process. Those who are really obese, and yeah, you have hair color, and it hasn't, and you're not going gray or whatever, it's because that programming is still in your body. I'll tell you, it's going to take a while for those who are obese to release the programming and reconfigure themselves. Those who are really underweight and really skinny, it's going to take a while for you to gain the programming and go through whatever energy conversion and whatever comes out of that energy conversion. And so when you're somewhere in the middle, you're not too obese and you're not too skinny. Okay? And I've been on either end. I mean, I don't say I was up. Well, yeah, I guess I could say I was. Probably, yeah. To me, but relative to somebody else, probably not. But you will feel everything under the sun. You will feel everything. And you have to sit with it. You got to sit with the headaches. I mean, I understand people have read in the digestive group, somebody went in for a headache, or they went to lay down with a headache and they never woke up. And so it's like, holy shit. But I'm telling you, when you're pulling out the shit and you're eating food and yeah, you're sleeping, don't let the body's natural, what it's supposed to do when you're sleeping and eating and pooping, all that, don't let those things scare you into thinking you're going to die. But that's right now what's going on is people are afraid to do anything now. They're afraid that they're going to die. But if you're not eating and you're not releasing in a way that is proper as far as the alimentary canal, then yeah, everything can happen. Anything can happen. And if you don't have what it takes to deal with unpredictability, but predictable, you just don't know when the energy is going to happen, when the dreams are going to happen, when whatever. If you're not willing to just sit with that and be brave in the face of that, then you'll try to control that process until you can't. Until you have to JUMPOUTTHEWINDOW. And I don't want anyone having to do that, to turn to that as a last resort. But that's kind of the situation many people are in. They can't handle the energy conversion. And so the system is trying to be kind and say, okay, diet suddenly is probably the best way to deal with people who are deteriorating rapidly. All right, that's all I'm going to say. Have a good day. Good luck.